Welcome to the inUpowers podcast, where we give a name and a face to emotion. We discuss the real and raw when it comes to mental and emotional health. We are here to teach you that emotions are information and behavior is a choice. We want to help you make safer connections through healthy communication by empowering you to understand what your emotions are telling you. I'm your host, Tami. Let's get started. Welcome to another inUpowers podcast. I'm Tami, your host, and today we have with us Lance Taylor, and we're super excited to have him. He has been a sports announcer for years, and he's been in and out of schools and has done sales, and he came upon our program, and we'll let him tell you about that. And then now he is part of our team, and we're super excited for you to get to know him and talk with him. So Lance, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are and why you're here.
Well, I kind of came in here through the back door a little bit, not the front door. It was a little bit different. Of course, I've been an acquaintance with you and your husband for several years, and happened to stop by. I was chatting with your husband, and he told me about this, and he gave me a book that you guys had put together on this, and I went home and I read completely through it several times. It was just wonderful, and I loved it. I loved the way it made me feel. I loved what it brought out, and I could relate to it. It's such a unique setup and program,
right.
and so as I got through that, my skill set goes back. I've been an announcer for a long time, so in order to do that, I've always had to work other businesses, own businesses, different things like that, and so sales has always been kind of my thing, and it just happened that you at the time were in need of somebody to put together your sales department as far as the structure goes, and
yes.
And I have that skill set, and I've done that a number of times doing sales processes, and so it worked out. And I'm one of those guys that I'm at the age in my life where if I'm selling something, it's got to be something that I'm passionate with, and I gained the passion for this before I ever spoke with you, and we talked about selling. So it's been a fun journey.
And what you went through our original book.
I did.
And the program hadn't even been put together yet, correct?
Yeah, that's right. In fact, there's been there was a name change to one of the characters,
Right.
and so forth since that period of time. But the principles were all still the same, and it was just something that each individual that I went through in that program, each individual, I don't know if character is the right term to use, but I use that because
right.
It's visual, and boy, you read through those, and there's not one of those that you read through that you don't realize. I remember a time in my life. And you can put that to use, and it was fantastic.
Which is really interesting for you because most of the people that read it can see other people. They rarely reflect on themselves to begin with. The first time they read it through, they're reactive characters or our storms. They're like, oh, I know somebody who acts like Wham. I know somebody who acts like OC. But they have a really hard time related to themselves. And you did that instantaneously?
Yeah, I mean, it was immediately internal for me. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that I couldn't see certain things in other people as well. There's certain things.
Easy.
I have a large family, between my wife and I, and so you certainly see different things, but it was very much internal for me as I did it. The internal perspective was it was emotional. To be able to go through that and then to be able to, be a part of this work moving forward, it's important. It's important. And however fast it happens, it's not fast enough.
That is how we have felt. We have watched the impact of other people and how it has changed their lives by using the program and baiting the program. And we're like, how do we get it here? And how do we get it here? And how do we get it here? But the problem is how to find the right demographic and how to apply it to other people. And that's kind of your skill set, is you could see how it would apply to other people. Talk to us about who you saw and why you think it could go, and why it would help those people, like us as a family, human family.
Well, it's one of those things that everybody falls under something that this program covers. I don't think there's a person in this world, or at least certainly not in my circle of influence, that couldn't read this and say, wow, I can see that in myself, or I can see that in another person that I'm close to. So first of all, it's relatable. And so really the market is everybody. But that doesn't mean that that it's marketable to everybody. There's different avenues. Anywhere from education to counseling to things dealing with the military. We've talked about that before. People who come home and experience post-traumatic stress disorder and other challenges that come from that as well. We also live in a society where we are seeing our youth struggle with with emotional challenges more than any other time we've ever seen, or certainly it's exposed more than any other time that we've ever seen. And so it's a program. As I started looking at different avenues, there's a lot of different ways to approach getting this in the hands of people. And as we narrow that down, it'll certainly happen. It'd be nice if we could just put it in the hands of everybody right now, but that's not always reasonable, as you know. And so to be able to put this in a perspective where we're able to create kind of a hierarchy. We've talked about that and said this is kind of where we're going to go first. We've looked a lot at the education system. We've talked about the ways to get it in individuals' hands.
Right.
We've talked about the counseling industry, and those are certainly avenues that we will pursue.
Yes, and we're super excited about it. But the superpower you have is sports. You've been a sports announcer for a long time, and sorry, that was rude. You've done it for a while, correct?
I have. A long time is fine. You see the color of my hair.
They might not. It's actually what we call mature blonde or gray. So,
this is not dyed. This is pure on silver.
You earned it.
That's right.
And so you have years of experience doing sports. Have you watched the mental decline in sports and the resiliency in our kids at all? Have you ever even seen a change in your announcing with the different generations and the kids?
Yeah, there is a different attitude in general. Sports has always been, one of those avenues that I felt it was a great avenue for kids to deal with emotions. When you look at an emotion of a ball game, for example, what are all the emotions you go through? You touch almost everything. Before the game, you're anxious, you're excited, you're scared. During a game, you go through excitement, you go through downs, you get mad, you get happy. There's so many different things, and what a safe environment it is for kids to be able to learn those skills and how to cope with those different skills through going through sports. But one of the things that was so great about sports for so many years was that sports had a level of accountability that was pretty much unmatched, with the exception maybe inside people's homes. And as the years have gone on, that's been one of the things that has declined a lot, has been the accountability aspect. You get a lot of youth nowadays that unfortunately are just not willing to be held accountable. And oftentimes, we hear about the problems that we have with parents in sports and things like that, and how many officials are getting out of sports because of how they're treated, how many coaches leave it because of parents and things like that. And along with oftentimes the youth, and I'm not saying all the youth, but there are some youth that are just not willing to be held accountable, and sometimes that can cancer an entire program. When it comes to sports. And unfortunately, there are parents out there who refuse to let those who have stewardship over their children hold their children accountable.
Wow.
And that's one of the declines that I've seen, is that the accountability aspect, it is very much transferred in a lot of situations from not being a we thing. It's definitely a me thing for many. And the thing is you might only have one or two of the me people on your team,
right?
But that overshadows a lot of the we, because it controls a lot of what goes on, and it's hard to hide a me person in a sports program, where people who are we people, that helps the program go. So those are certainly some things that I've seen, and that's something that this program actually addresses, because it has an accountability aspect. Because accountability, it's pretty tough to grow in life without accountability, particularly more so than outside accountability, self-accountability.
I've spent my whole life blaming, when I was a little kid, it was my sister's fault. It was somebody else's fault. My parents would be like, Tami, you're the only one that touched it. And I'm like, but I didn't want to get in trouble. And my parents would always say, I would rather you tell the truth. You'll get in less trouble if you tell me the truth than if you were to lie. And I just, as a child, it's just your autopilot. But if a parent allows a child to get out of it, it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, accountability, like anything, starts at home. And with a lot of people out there right now, maybe they didn't have that. as they grew up. And this is a program that can address that and can help set that course back straight for a lot of people who maybe didn't have that or have got out of that in their life. And all of us, let's face it, all of us at some point in time do not want to take responsibility for something we did, whether it's something small, whether it's something big. Those are challenges that we can all have. That's why the characters that you find in the inUpowers program are so powerful, because we can see that in us. And when we see it in a setting like that, we look at that and say, boy, that's an unacceptable behavior. Holy cow. I was unacceptable for a little while when I chose that behavior. And so these are processes and ways that we can learn to overcome that and be better. We're never going to be perfect at it, but it's self-correction that is great. It's like taking an off-ramp on a freeway. Sometimes we took the wrong one, but it's your ability to get right back on that freeway that gives you the best opportunity to regroup after realizing that what I did was wrong. What's hard is when you hop off that freeway and all of a sudden there's a detour. There's construction going, you can't hop right back on that freeway. That's kind of the way decisions are in our life.
Yeah.
And the way this program is set up is so that if we take the wrong off-ramp decision-wise, we have the knowledge and the skills to be able to correct that and get back where we need to be.
It's so true. And a lot of times in life, we mess up and then we think it's okay to hide it or to never address it or to suppress it.
Sure.
And we also, when we did something really great, sometimes we're scared to actually shine. It can go both ways.
Sure.
And in our program, we make sure that you take accountability for both. For whether you did something that was not good and you want to hide it, or that was really great and you're scared to shine from it. And that's hard. As a human, it is hard to take credit sometimes for something that was really great. I mean, in a game, it's fun and everything like that, but then how long is somebody patting you on the back for a basket you made? Or the touchdown you made? I mean, sometimes you can have to say thank you for a really long time, and that can be hard. And so the program does teach those things. Hit our microphone. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think as you look at a program like this and what it does, you talk about, there are those fears of failure. There's an equal fear of success oftentimes, and sometimes we get caught in that middle where we don't want to reach those boundaries on each side, and it's just like it's like being a charitable person. Having that as a principle, and to be charitable, there's also times where you might have to accept some charity at some time as well. And that is very humbling. And you have to accept that just as much as you have to give it if you're a giving person as well. And then there's parts of that throughout this program that you can see those things that strengthen people in those areas and be able to be a good receiver as you are a good giver. Christmas is a great time for that. As a little kid, we're great receivers.
Yes.
We're not always necessarily the greatest givers, but as you age in life, you find a joy in giving as well, and maybe sometimes it becomes a little bit harder to receive. And so, those are things that can be quickly corrected if you know what's causing them, where they're coming from, why am I having this feeling. And and usually those are fear-based. I mean, there's no science to that that's too difficult for us to grasp because most of those things are fear-based. It's why we order the same meal most of the time we go to a restaurant. We get comfortable with it.
Yes.
Well, I kind of have a fear of spending this much money and then not liking the food that I order. Life is very much that way.
It's so true. In fact, one of my favorite sayings is, growth begins where your comfort zone ends.
Yeah.
But
very true.
But we like to be comfortable. And in our comfort, we tend to do what we've always done. We tend to lean on our autopilots. We tend to go to what we always know. And with this program, we challenge that. However, there is a lot of people who have done things the same way, don't want to go through growth, and don't want to address some of the things they've suppressed. Like, there's a lot of autopilots we have, even from our generation.
Yeah.
We go back and talk about 80s music.
Yeah, that's right.
90s country. And we learned a lot from our parents. And one of the things we learned about our parents is, I don't know if I even said it, I know I said this out loud, is don't cry. Just suck it up. Suck it up and figure it out. And I feel like those autopilots continue to get passed down. And then now we have a generation that's like, oh, you're crying, I'll fix everything. And this program isn't telling you to not go through it, but it helps you address those things.
Sure.
Do you see in sports broadcasting and all that stuff, that suck it up and go and do? Or do you see more of like, oh, I'll fix the world? Do you think that's the problem with the accountability piece?
It could be. There is definitely some crossover there. I think a lot of it when you look with, at with sports moves so fast.
Yes.
You miss a shot here, well, you got to forget about that pretty quick because you're playing defense on the other end, And so, as an athlete, you have those opportunities to readjust quickly. Life doesn't move as fast as life moves. It doesn't move quite that quickly in the same sense.
True.
So usually we can sit on things for a while. One of the ways that I put it too is, you get listening to a song list, and you get used to listening to those songs. Well, what happens when one song ends? You immediately start singing that other song that's coming on because that's in your mind. And sometime you'll hear one of those songs on a radio that's not on your playlist. And it finishes, you start singing that same song that you've always done, but it's a different song that comes on because it's not part of your playlist anymore, and it gets your entire world out of whack from it. It's like, well, no, wait a minute, this is the song that's supposed to come on. And our body does a little bit of autopilot like that. And when you get taken out of that comfort zone, it requires a change. Over the years, as we've become acquainted, you and your husband and my wife and I worked out at the same gym, so that's
Yes.
typically where we would see each other, was in a gym setting. And you know from the lifting process, when you first start, you're sore. You eventually hit a part where you're not sore anymore, and you've got to change up your workout. You got to get sore again in order to have some of that growth. You can't just stay where you are. There is a maintenance benefit. There's a benefit to just maintenance.
Yes.
But to be able to grow, you've got to get sore again. And our lives are very, very much that way, and it's okay. It's okay to have those days where your world seems out of whack because things were a little different. Good. Those are the days that maybe the term "suck it up" does become appropriate,
Right.
And there's times that we all have to do that.
It's true. And we need to be okay with it.
Yeah.
When we do that change, sometimes I think a lot of times we're not okay with it.
Yeah.
And we want to go back to the way it was instead of being uncomfortable or sore for a minute
Sure.
before we get to the next step.
Yeah. We very much want to be comfortable. We all do.
Yes.
And again, that's okay as well. It's just, are we able to correct? Are we able to say, listen, it's appropriate to be comfortable for this period of time, but then we've got to get out, and we've got to be able to experience that growth again. Maybe some people feel like I've grown enough. To me, I think that's a dangerous step. But
I think that way sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to grow anymore.
But there is that reality factor that staying in the same spot, it becomes a little boring and mundane as well, and we do. I think just naturally as humans that we need that change, and that's okay.
In fact, our psychologist that was on here, and he's a part of our program, Dallas Johnson, talked about how if you aren't growing, you're stunting your growth and you're paralyzing your brain and you're making less neurons do it, so we can get stuck in dopamine loops, scrolling on our phones or watching games or getting into regular patterns and not changing. And he says if we're really conscious, we can strengthen our hope muscle and things like that. But I know that with this program, you were seeing a lot about your life and different things. And our generation, we tend to suppress our feelings. But another great thing I have seen with our program is healing.
Yeah.
And the power of the uncomfortable to get on the other side of healing. While you were going through those characters, did you have any moments that you reflected and saw how you took a detour and came back, and how that had made a difference for you? Did something like that happen for you?
Yeah, actually it did. I grew up in a wonderful family, but anytime you have those two parents, they come from different families as well.
Right.
And you learn different behaviors based upon the way your parents do things. And I don't ever want to say that it's necessarily right or wrong, unless it was abusive or something like that. I don't want to say that the personalities were necessarily right or wrong, but they were different. And you learn how to handle certain things certain ways. And you don't know any different.
It's true.
As you're raised, you think that's the normal. However it's done, you think that's the normal. My dad handled things a certain way. My mom handled things a certain way. They were different. And I had to realize that some of those behaviors that I had learned were not ones that were helping me become better. They were not ones that were helping me grow and helping me move forward. And one of those is it it was easy to maybe become a little bitter and to hold a grudge here and there and things like that. And those are things that in my life I've had to get over, that I had to look at and to say, boy, those things are certainly not worth it. And I had a wonderful experience meeting my wife and getting married, and she has just been awesome. Her personality has been really awesome for me that way, and it brings in another perspective that I say, wow, that's a bit healthier than holding a grudge against somebody. Right. Those kinds of things. And so as I went through the program and I looked about, what are the types of personalities that hold grudges? What are the types of personalities that don't want to move on? And we all know those people that if they get over one crisis in their life, they start another crisis because that is their comfort zone, is always having a crisis that they have to be involved in all the time. And that's an easy trap to fall into. Because, again, it's a trap where, again, you don't have to have accountability. You have to try to hold everybody else accountable. And these are things that I've learned, and as I was reading through this, I'm like, holy cow, I remember that time in my life. And maturity is different as well. As you mature in life, you handle things different, and again, sometimes that can be good. Sometimes not necessarily.
Well, and I am grateful to be able to age gracefully, and I'm grateful for the wisdom of age, but sometimes wisdom's painful.
It is.
And it pulls you through the coals, and it makes it a little bit hard to just get on the other side. But then when you're on the other side, there's just so many lessons, if you choose to have the lessons from all of that. We are getting close to the end. Is there something you want to say to people, or want them to know about the program, want them to know about you, want them to listen to, whatever you want? What would you like to tell the podcast world?
Well, I think the main thing is the program. It works. And if you're looking for something that can educate you to why you feel this certain way, how you can get out of feeling this certain way. And again, it's not that feeling any of these ways is bad.
No. It's
just certain ones of these feelings. If you stay in them a long time, they can have consequences that you really don't want to have to cross that bridge. And so being able to look at this program and learn about it and educate yourself, okay, this is why I feel this way. This is why this has happened. And have self-accountability. I haven't seen another program that is better than this. For people to be able to see that in themselves. And that's really what grabbed a hold of me. And again, have I seen everything out there? No. But at 54 years old, I've told you before, I'm not a dinosaur, but I'm not a spring chicken either. So there's been a few blocks that I have been around in my life and a lot of things that I've seen, and I just have not seen anything that matches this in its ability for people to recognize and see what's going on.
And it's so important because we love that we have emotions. Sure. I love sharing my life with someone. I love feeling when they're down, sitting with them, and feeling when they're happy and sitting with them through their joy. It's so fun to be a part of the human experience. Yeah. And these characters give us the ability to see other humans' experiences, whether they're having a obliviously selfish and centering moment, they're on fire and they're mad and they're burning people and their perfectionism's keeping them trapped, or if they're having a what about me moment and needs attention, or if they're having a super compassionate moment and loving others. It's so great to see the characters and see our emotions and be able to do it, but to be able to connect and to have healthy communication is super powerful. And with our wisdom, it's made it just a little bit easier.
Yeah.
As painful as it's become.
Well, and wisdom to me is more than knowledge, because wisdom is taking knowledge and using it. We can all gain knowledge, but wisdom is being able to put that to use, and it's being able to put it into terms that can be understood as well. And I think that's as I look back on particularly my youth, those who were around me that were wise, grandparents, aunts and uncles, parents. Teachers, those people around me that had wisdom. And wisdom is something that comes over a period of time. You can learn a lot of things.
Yes.
But wisdom is different.
No, that one's got your own blood, sweat, and tears in.
Yes, it does. And a lot of trial and error.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Lance, for being a part of our podcast. And we will get to you. I'm going to redo that. Thank you so much, Lance, for being a part of our podcast. You guys will probably hear his voice again and see him again. And remember, emotions are information, behavior is a choice. Thank you. See you. Bye. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the inUpowers podcast. We are grateful you are here. Please share this podcast with those you know who might need it, and follow and rate us so we can continue providing this podcast to you. Follow us on social media to see more visuals about the inUpowers, and join us next week for another episode. Until then, remember, the power to choose is in you.